Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
What you got for me today,
ready?
Claire? I am. What you gonna tell me about? What piece of
Today's-
shit did you research and put in your brain hole?
You're real
I'm feeling
hyped up.
hyper today. I
You
sure
sure
am.
You done?
Continue. No, I sure ain't. Keep going.
Today's piece of shit is Joseph Francis Bryan Jr., who was born in New Jersey in 1939 and would be a traveling terror during the 60s with a deadly fixation with little boys, specifically during 1964.
What the hell, Claire?
I know you're not going to like this one, and it'll pipe you down.
I don't like that. I was in a real good mood. For those that don't know, my children, I love them to pieces, but today's the first day of school. My house is clean and quiet.
And to everyone who now has an empty household this morning, catch up on all the episodes you missed this summer and start binge listening. There's a lot of things going on or happened already.
Lots of son bitches. We done talked about lots of them.
Mm-hmm. That way you can get your murder fix.
Without you as a person having to go to jail for committing the murders, you can done listen to how other people, all those other son bitches. I'm real excited. My children, not gone, but the house is clean. Anyone with a lot of children, especially elementary school age, you get it. When they're out of the house and you can clean and nobody's gone behind you and made a mess of what you just worked to clean, it really does something for the brain hole. It makes it real satisfied and you feel accomplished, and then you can done walk around your house after a few hours of cleaning and be like, I forgot what it was like to have a clean house, because having kids home for the summer does a number. Your silence is something.
Well, a little teeny bitty tiny tangent, so
I'm just saying, I'm super excited.
I can understand anyone with a lot of elementary school children in the house. I get it. I was just letting you say your pieces before we get into the murdering of some elementary school children.
What?
That's what I have for you today. You done spoiled it. So nothing's really known about Joseph's early childhood years and why he develops a fixation with little boys. So we're just going to really skip to when he's 19. He joins the Navy, where he is soon discharged in September 1958 when he's discovered to have a mental illness, and he's committed for observation at the Portsmouth Naval Hospital. Now, I don't know what he did that triggered him to be committed to the Naval Hospital, but they soon discharged him from the military and also the hospital.
You like the military cases.
You know what? It's weird that they just stumble on themselves, because I didn't learn about that until after I started doing this case, and I was like, what the heck?
It's interesting. Carry on.
Now, on Sunday, October 10th, 1958, just 2 weeks after becoming a civilian again, 9-year-old George Beerley was walking on the side of the road on his way to play in a wooded area behind the Church of Holy Maternity. So a man comes up behind him, grabs him, and starts to pull him back along the road towards Peters Creek. The man took off his belt, tried to strap the hands of little George. George was struggling and fighting, so much so that the man slaps George, but with all the struggling, George was able to break free, so that little boy ran as fast as he could back to the house where his dad was visiting one of his friends. Now, naturally, his dad wanted to go back to where this man grabbed him, but no one was there. Now, George's dad would tell police that his son was deathly white when they went back to that place where it happened, and he also had a red mark on his face from where the man had slapped him, so there was no question in his mind if his son was telling the truth or not. Not to mention...
Good job for him for trusting his son. There's too many times that the parents don't believe their kid.
Right, and I get it. There's no one there, no one saw it. Kids like to tell tales, but I can get behind that dad's mental state of, let's go. Point this feller out. He's going to get an ass whooping.
Yeah.
But regardless, no one's there when they get there. But
I would have been surprised if he was.
But he also, not to mention that George was also speechless. He had been so frightened, and I'm sure that was real scary for him. Now, later that Later that same afternoon, 11-year-old Edward Campia was playing near Peters Creek when a man grabs him, ties him to a tree with a thin piece of rope. So the man left him there, returns after a few minutes, but those few minutes was all Edward needed. He spent that time rubbing the rope back and forth and up and down and against the bark until it snapped. Now, once free, Edward went running as fast as his little legs could carry him all the way home. Now, Edward would lead police back to that area where he said he broke free. Police would find frayed clothesline near the edge of the ravine that, in addition to the burn marks from the rope on the boys' wrists. Now, with both boys' descriptions, police start combing the community looking for a young man dressed in a red shirt, old trousers, roughly 5'6", and about 130 pounds.
How old was the second little boy?
11.
Okay.
Now, the following night, Mr. and Mrs. Bryan, Joseph's parents, would bring their son to the police station after they read the description of the man they were looking for just the night before that had attacked 2 little boys.
What? I mean, good job for the parents for not being like, hey, was this you? Let's hide you. But,
right.
Dang.
Now, Joseph was held without bail on charges of lewdness. Joseph was then committed to a psychiatric hospital just 10 days later after admitting to police that he had sexually assaulted 2 boys. There, at the mental hospital, he was diagnosed as a dangerous schizophrenic. During one of his many therapy sessions, Joseph would tell his psychiatrist that he was aroused by seeing little boys tied up and screaming.
Oh, what the fuck, Claire? That's not normal. That's not right. And I don't like this here case. And you knew it, you sick son bitch.
I know it. It's not right. Now, by January 1959... Joseph and another patient escape with some of the 250 visitors that had come through that Sunday between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m. They were noticed to be missing when the nurse went to make her checks. The hospital officials would claim that since neither patient had previous offenses, they were both mild-behaving men, they had full privileges around the facility, so...
That sounds like a real swell idea. What?
Right?
That doesn't even make sense. What do they mean he had no previous offenses? He sure fucking did. That's why he's there. Do they mean like he wasn't bad once he was locked up?
No, so that's their one-time offense. Both of them were, that's the first time they've been there. So they had their full range of privileges.
So I'm guessing they weren't in any type of hospital clothing, which is how they were able to slip out, or did somebody bring them regular clothes to slip into?
Andrea,
I don't know how they done did it. I only can reference them movies where they dress in the hospital gowns and a bathrobe and look like they're crazy and banging their heads into walls.
I wasn't there, so I don't know. I just know that they walked out with other visitors as they came and went between 2 and 4.
I kind of pictured them walking out, giggling like little schoolgirls as they're like, can you believe that worked? Let's just walk out. Oh my gosh, that really happened. They're so stupid. They probably even waved to people as they walked out. Bye. See ya. Have a good one. And the nurses are like, have a good afternoon.
Now, believe it or not, he's still released.
Dude, what? They let him out
from the hospital
after escaping?
Right. Evidently, he's a real well-behaved boy. But the case with the 2 boys would never make it to the grand jury.
You can't see my face right now, but I'm pretty sure you know me well enough to know that my jaw is dropped and my eyes have a what the fuck? No,
right.
You can't do that. Oh my.
Told you weren't going to like this case. Now, shortly after his release, he decides to start traveling, making off with more than 50 savings bonds that he took from his parents. He makes his way to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't care about that. They raised that monster, but they raised that monster.
Yeah, but at
least they turned him in.
They turned his ass in.
Yeah. Was he staying with them, or did he go knock on the door and he's like, hey, Ma, hey, Paul, I'm back? And they were like, we don't know you, and locked the door, and then he stole the bonds from them? Or did they welcome him in? He
No.
stole from them.
So he lives with them.
Well, then they fucking deserve what they get.
Anyway, so he finds himself in a Las Vegas jail in 1960. He's now 23 when he was arrested for burglary and auto theft. This lands him 42 months in jail after he pleads guilty. What?
Do you know how long it is from when he got out of jail or out of the mental hospital, they released his stupid ass, to getting arrested in Vegas?
Less than
like
6
a couple
months.
months, couple years. Oh, okay.
He's relatively quickly. You figure once he was released out of the mental hospital and became a civilian, he was trying to kidnap or do whatever he was doing to 2 little boys 2 weeks after being out.
Okay, you're going to have to rewind because I'm super confused.
Prior to him tying the 2 boys or trying to tie him down to do whatever he was going to do, prior to that happening, he had joined the military. Then
Right.
during that chunk, he admitted to molesting or sexually molesting 2 different boys. To which
While in the
nothing
military?
comes. I don't know I don't believe it was in the military, but at some point he lets that slip, which leads him to being looked at mentally, to which that gets him kicked out of the military. Now, 2 weeks after becoming a civilian is when he tries to strap down those other 2 boys. Now, why he's in that little Looney Tune area is when he does his admitting of he gets aroused by seeing little boys tied up. But again,
the timeline
nothing
is super confusing for my brain hole, but I can tell you he's a son bitch.
But it's one of those he is a son bitch, but it's one of those cases of just like if somebody admits to a murder, if you don't find anything to substantiate that, it seems like they're just talking out their brain hole and nothing happens with it. So he can talk about him.
It's not talking out the brain hole. They're talking out their asshole.
Well,
they're making shit up.
However you want to phrase it, nothing. He doesn't get charged with that either. He just gets kicked out of the military because they think clearly he's got some mental defects and he needs to go on now and get. So they do that, and then 2 weeks into being a civilian again is when he tries to do whatever he's trying to do in the woods with the 2 boys. But anyway, he finds himself in that jail in Nevada, and he's there for 42 months after he pleads guilty for that burglary and auto theft nonsense. Now, while there, he would learn that the Camden, New Jersey prosecutor was looking to have him extradited to be charged for contributing to the delinquency of minors, to which I don't know what the fuck that is. It's possible Joseph's an idiot, and it's also possible that they wanted to extradite him because of him fondling minors, but for whatever reason, he seemed to think that they wanted to extradite him for contributing to the delinquency of minors, which I don't know what he would... Anyway.
Giving them alcohol is what I picture.
Well, Joseph would write the New Jersey DA letter saying that I don't want to do wrong and how he wants to live a normal life and in the future not want to hurt anybody by some foolish act. I'm going to read you his letter, though. Okay? Just this morning, I was informed that I had a hold on me from there and that you wished to extradite me to Camden. Well, I will tell you it like this. I thought that after coming out of the hospital, I was through with the whole thing. As you know, when I was put there, I was under an emotional strain and didn't know what I did. In fact, I don't care right now because I know it will never happen again. How come you want me on something like that? I wanted to forget it ever happened and live a normal life. I left home because of 2 reasons. I lost my job in New York shipyard, and I think it was because somebody found out I was in the hospital. Maybe not, maybe so. But a lot of my friends wouldn't talk to me, and I wanted to get out of there and make good. I got in trouble in Las Vegas and was put in jail. I have a chance for probation, which if I get, I want to come home and help my family. My mother's been operated on twice since I've been in, and I understand she had both her legs taken off. Well, when
Oh,
I
shit.
found when I found out, I was crying for days. I've started reading the Bible and praying for forgiveness. I feel a lot better for it now, and I know I will never be in jail after this, for I will never again give anyone a reason to put me there. I
Because
want
he's
to
going
go
to kill his victims.
I want to go to work and live like a human being, not like some of the drunks and bums in jail. I can see what that kind of life gets a person. I don't want to hurt anybody by some foolish act. I know if I pray to God, I will be all right. All I need is a chance. Will you please write to me and let me know what is going on? I don't want to do wrong. I already learned the biggest lesson a man can learn, and that is never cause anyone any harm by the things you do. I probably hurt my mother more than myself, and I know that if you want to extradite me, write me and tell me what for. If you don't write me and tell me so I can give a letter to the judge May 2nd when I go for my probation hearing, you don't have to anyway. I will be home as soon as they let me out of here, but if I sign papers here, it'll cost you to send a man here for me, and when I get there, that will be against me. I hope you will consider my plea. I love my family and don't want to hurt them. The papers will carry this story, and I will be in jail, and my family will be disgraced. Please reply as soon as you receive this letter. I need an answer before May 2nd. Thank you. Signed, Joseph F. Bryan Jr. The prosecutor
What day
did
did
not...
he write that?
It was in 1960.
Yeah, do you know what day? Like how long he was giving them to respond?
I think it was in April.
So not long, considering how long it takes to get mail.
No. But
That's
I
pretty
thought it was funny because
What a demanding little shit.
the prosecutor did not respond to his letter.
Did they get it? I
don't know.
realize they eventually got it since you're able to read it, but I'd be curious to see if they actually got it and they were just like, who the hell does this guy think he is? And just chucked it to the side and added it to his file, or if they, I don't know, didn't get it by May 2nd.
They probably chunked it and were like, they were dealing with a lot of shit in the 60s already, I'm sure. So they were like, what's this jackass? He's in Nevada. Let him rot in there. Now, he wouldn't be paroled until January 20th, 1964. Now, he's barely a month out of prison. It's February 28th, when 7-year-old John Robinson would go missing after riding his bicycle near his home in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. FBI agents that were investigating the disappearance heard from 2 local farmers about a white Cadillac they had helped pull from a ditch just a few hours before they heard of the missing boy. The driver had been traveling with a young boy who was in the back seat and was acting suspiciously to the farmers, so much so that they decided to jot down the license plate. Excited, I know, right? Excitedly, they run the plate and it comes back to Joseph Bryan, who they then learn had been staying at a nearby motel. So they go check out where the car had been bogged down and discover little John Robinson's bicycle, not far, chunked in some weeds. Immediately, an APB goes out for Joseph's arrest. Unfortunately, he somehow gets out of the state without capture, and the case goes cold.
Did they find the little boy?
No. The case goes cold. Nothing. They don't find Joseph. They don't find John.
Well, I wasn't sure if they found the boy, but didn't find him.
Nope. They just found his little bicycle where the car was pulled out of. Which brings us to March 23rd, nearly a month after John Robinson goes missing. 7-year-old Lewis Hackey Wilson Jr., the son of a St. Petersburg, Florida firefighter, vanishes after stopping to pick some flowers on his way home from school. He was excited because his grandmother was coming for a visit. Now, firefighters and police launched one of the most extensive searches in the city's history, searching every pond and lake in the city, even pumping one lake nearly dry. They climbed into the sewer, the draining lines, turned over every rock, looked in every canal and every pond, anywhere they thought a little boy might get himself into trouble, for 5 long weeks.
Oh, God.
The family... I know. I felt so bad for these families. The family even enlisted help from a famous Dutch psychic who advised that the little boy had had an accident and would be found underwater. Everyone banded together to search the area, but they don't find anything. The case goes cold. Which brings us to a little over a week later, April 1st. 8-year-old David Wolf goes missing from his home in New Jersey. His home is just 13 miles from where Joseph lived. David would make it home from school that day, but explained to his mother that he had forgotten to ask her permission that morning before leaving for school if he could stay after class to help his teacher. She said that was fine for him to go back to school and help his teacher, so he sets off around 3:30 that afternoon to walk the 5 blocks back to school. After waiting for David and him not showing up, his teacher was called to a meeting, so she leaves her classroom, but not before double-checking to make sure David wasn't coming into the school. By 5:30, David's mother starts calling David's friends and playmates to find out where he is.
Why didn't she call the school?
Maybe that she did and nobody's there, or maybe it's after 5, no one's at the school. I don't know, but she starts calling around trying to find out where David is. Now, as soon as David's dad gets home from work, he calls the police. They would search 2 weeks with hundreds of volunteers, searching 9 square miles inch by inch, not finding one clue. They even had 22 divers in all the creeks surrounding his home, bloodhounds, military personnel, helicopters scouring the fields. Nothing turns up. Now, the dad would express concern that he feared his son had been kidnapped since they had not found anything after those 2 weeks of searching. He said his son knew not to talk to strangers, not to take money, gum, gifts, or to get into a car with someone he didn't know. Now, I'm going to spoil this for you. When this asshole is finally caught, and he does finally get caught, he states that he saw the little boy sitting on the curb out in front of the school as he was passing through, the little town. When he pulled the car up in front of him and asked him if he wanted to go get a soda, the boy got in the car. They then drove to New York City and spent the night in a motel before heading south the next day, which would be April 3rd, which was when the search for David intensified. They would make it to a federal forest area in Virginia, where he would take David from the car with his hands tied with a belt. He would tell police that the boy had fallen down and he thought he died. That version would then change to he put something around the boy's neck, and then he was dead. He would then bury him in a shallow grave and leave. It would be 5 weeks until, after he disappeared before his body is recovered. Joseph would provide directions from his jail cell of roughly where David was. Now, FBI agents would search the mountainous border of Virginia and North Carolina for 6 days before they find the tiny body laying face down under a tree, covered with branches and leaves. A plastic raincoat was wrapped around his head. 2 strands of insulated wire were bound tightly around his little neck.
Poor
and when
baby.
his parents learned that they found the body of their son, his mom collapsed weeping, "Oh, my boy, my boy!" She was put under sedation by her doctor because she lost it. And I don't understand, but I can understand that 5 weeks of all that searching I know they found him, but not the way that they would have hoped.
Yeah.
Now, David's dad was distraught as well to learn of the discovered body, but refused to believe it was his boy. So David's dad and his uncle would leave with police at 9 p.m. that night to identify the body. It did, in fact, turn out to be David. He was their oldest of 3 children. They had 2 girls, 5 and 6. Now that's going to bring us to April 2nd. 3 little kids are hunting lizards in a mangrove swamp in Dade County, Florida.
Does this guy just travel up and down the coast?
He's traveling all over the place, like a nomad.
Because I was sitting here originally and I was like, I thought she mentioned Florida. Now he's up in New Jersey. Now he's down in Virginia. Now he's back in Florida.
He's all over the place. And keep in mind, he did nearly 4 years in Nevada for a burglary. Which, it's amazing. Well, that's why I wanted to give you that little spoiler that he is caught. So just cling to he's caught. But I can imagine it's very difficult for the police when you've got somebody all over the place and you can't link them until it's far too many.
Well, that, and this is still back before they had the whole open communication between different departments.
They'll even missing persons.
That too.
So
poor
on April
babies.
2nd, 3 little kids are hunting lizards in a mangrove swamp in Dade County when they find the remains of a child. The body was naked except for shoes. The socks were either removed or had disintegrated. Initially, officials thought it was the body of a little girl because of how badly decomposed it was. They searched the database of Florida of the missing persons, but find nothing matching the description of the child that they think they found.
Well, no shit. If it's a little boy and they
girl.
thought it was a girl, no wonder it didn't match.
Well, initially they thought it was a girl, but then they find out it's a boy. So they expand their search to other states. Now, the body was later identified as Johnny Robinson, who had gone missing in February out of South Carolina. Initially identified by the shoes he was wearing, then confirmed through dental records. Now, a small kitchen knife was found not far from his body. Now, 12 days later, Joseph Bryan was placed on the FBI's most wanted list, and a national search was now underway.
How did they connect it to him? Just because they suspected him of...
I think when that one case, when they knew, like, he was pulled out of the ditch and that little missing boy's bike was there, and they also know that the whole situation with the 2 boys, they know
They really want to talk to this feller.
Yeah. They also know that there was a boy in the car. He doesn't have a son. He doesn't have any reason to be traveling with a small child, and he's been missing. So with how long things have gone missing, he ends up on the FBI's most wanted list. And so that starts a nationwide search for Joseph Bryan. Then on April 23rd, 8-year-old Dennis Burke disappears in Humboldt, Tennessee, while he was out riding his bike around 8 p.m. on Friday. Now, 5 days later, April 28th, 1964, a lone FBI agent spots a stolen 1963 Cadillac being driven by Joseph in New Orleans. The agent flags on a second... Yeah.
He's just zigzagging across the country, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, continue.
Now, the agent flags down a second agent, and the 2 follow Joseph to a nearby shopping center. They spot Joseph as he emerges from the mall holding the hand of Dennis Burke. The boy would later testify that Joseph treated him well while they were together, staying in nice motels, went to watch the horse races, to the bowling alley, slept until noon, went swimming, bet on horses. They would eat steak or anything he wanted, like pancakes for breakfast. Dennis would say he didn't try to escape because Joseph had told him he would take him home soon. Dennis was sporting a tender sunburn from all the pool playtime. Now, when Dennis was rescued, Joseph was taking him to the mall to buy new clothes since he only had the ones that he kidnapped him with.
Sorry. It's not funny, but...
Which I'm glad this boy's alive. But is he stupid? People, talk to your children.
How old is he? How old is he again?
8.
And he's the last one that was kidnapped?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, he's so excited he's on vacation with a stranger.
I wonder... I would like to think that my 7-year-old wouldn't go with anybody.
Hey, I honestly...
But I feel like...
I was trying to think of who we know that your kids have not met to see if we could abduct one. Just as a test.
That's a bit scarring, but yeah.
Hey, no, when I read the one of the dad going, no, my son knows not to get in a car, not to take anything from strangers, and yet his son's sitting on the curb outside the school thinking he's waiting for his teacher, and all he was offered was a soda. You want to go get a soda? That's it. And he got in the car. I can't tell you, parents, talk to your children. Drill it into their little heads that you don't need anything from anybody.
I'm going to have to talk to my oldest 2 and see if they have a friend that can...
kidnap your smaller ones. I think it's worth the lesson.
Not necessarily kidnap, but maybe be like, hey, do you want this piece of candy? And see if they'll come get in the car to get a piece of candy.
Well, even the candy...
terrorize them in the... Not terrorize them in the sense of like take off and scare the shit out of them, because I feel like that would cross a line. But at least see if my kids approach the strange vehicle or get in it.
You want a puppy? Or how about this new bicycle? Any of the things to see if they'd even walk over there.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, this is disturbing.
My now 14... you know what? My now 14-year-old I know that when he was like 10, some guy pulled in the driveway and him and his friend were outside. Thankfully, I was right there because I watch my kids like a hawk. They approached the guy's car because he wanted to know if they had, if if my husband, their dad was home, and because the guy wanted money. And it was like, did you really just walk up to this guy's driver's side of his vehicle because he was mumbling and you couldn't understand him? So they approached closer. And I was just like, we don't do that. No, sir. And I scared that man away because I'm not nice when it comes to my kids and their safety. Well, I don't play games. Mama bear mode.
No, I think grown-ass adults don't need to be talking to children in the yard.
They sure don't. But by the way, just for you and anybody else out there, the guy was not a predator. He's just someone that comes around and weed eats the properties around here. And he doesn't do any like real work. He does like piecework here and there and tries to earn money from doing little odds and ends.
That's work. He's a handyman. Unofficially.
Yeah.
So when Dennis was rescued, that's when he tells them that they were headed to the mall to buy him new clothes since all he had was the one set. Now, Dennis would say that Joseph lured him into the car by offering him 50 cents to be shown the way to the Humboldt School. Now, once
50 cents?
Well, I'm telling you, I was like, I would be so irritated with that boy. I mean, I know the one that was offered the soda died, and that's tragic. But this boy, 50 cents and directions, personally?
And he's happily going along with him.
Yeah, to be shown the way. Now, once they get to the school, Joseph asks him if he's seen the ocean before, to which Dennis says he hasn't. So Joseph tells him, I'm going to take you to see the ocean, and away they go. Now, once they're out of town, Joseph will pull over, tie Dennis's hands, and tell him that he would bring him back home on Wednesday. They then head to Memphis, which my brain went off of, that is nowhere near the ocean. That's actually the opposite direction of the ocean. Not that this kid would know, but I was like, all right. He then pulls over, and Joseph will tell Dennis that if he promises not to run away, that he'll untie him. Dennis promises, and Joseph unties him. They spend the first night together in a motel in Memphis. The next day, they drive to Jackson, Mississippi, and spend the night there. They stay up late and sleep in every morning. The next morning,
this kid's just having the time of his life.
He sure is. I was like, he thinks he's on vacation. Has it not occurred to him? No one knows where he's at.
So my youngest is so stuck up my butt, love him to pieces, cute as can be. But after a couple minutes, he'd be crying and carrying on because he wants me. He's so attached to my hip, which is fine. He's little. But this kid's just like, where are we going next? Oh, you want to tie me up? Oh, that's a little weird, but all right.
Do I get candies? No, the next morning, still in Mississippi, Joseph lets Dennis go swimming in the pool while he goes back to sleep. To which I was like, he's upstairs sleeping while the boy's playing in the pool. And that's when Dennis gets sunburned. He also sees a newspaper headline about a boy being kidnapped and thought it might be about him, but Dennis didn't try to escape because he had such complete faith and trust in the man to take him back home.
This kid's an idiot.
That's why it's like, I'm glad he lived, but he's a moron.
I'm only saying he's an idiot because he lived, but
well,
very trusting.
They'll speculate later it's because he was so well behaved that maybe that is why he survived. If he would have tried to run away, maybe that would have led to his death. But I was like, dude, he's downstairs swimming in the pool. He could have just walked up to literally anyone and been like, yeah, I'm kidnapped and he's asleep upstairs.
I'd be so mad at my kid. After the hugs and the crying that they're safe, I'd be like, what is wrong? Like, the more I hear this, the more I think of my little one, and I'm just like,
same.
This kid.
Because I could kind of see
you know better.
Like, we're gonna go do this. No.
And then I could totally see mine shrugging his shoulders after watching me have a mental meltdown and being like, but I'm back.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand why you're so upset because I am back.
Now, once Joseph wakes up, They leave from there and head to New Orleans, where they hit the racetrack and go bowling. And that's where, at some point, they realize Dennis needs some different clothes, so that's when they head for the mall, and that's when they get spotted, and then they think they're rescuing Dennis, when in reality, they're just ending Dennis's vacation, and Dennis is initially scared of the FBI agents, because you figure they're in plain clothes, and they just see him, the man he's been with, get jumped on, and he's worried for his kidnapper, who apparently is in a kidnapper.
It's his buddy. That's his best of Did he not? Okay, so he's not, like, is he not raping these kids? He's collecting them, killing them?
Dennis would say that the man did not touch him or hurt him at all. So I don't understand what, other than clearly there's something not right in this feller's head. So I don't know why he killed the other boys. I don't know why he was gallivanting around the countryside with Dennis.
He just wanted a friend. The other ones didn't want to be his friend.
Evidently
That's what
not.
It sounds like.
And apparently he tied them down so that they would stay his friend. But then there's also the side where he got aroused when they got tied up. Maybe because Dennis wasn't screaming when he got tied up, he was like, well, this isn't working. I don't know. But Joseph would claim he didn't do anything wrong, and that Dennis had come with him willingly, and therefore he was not guilty of kidnapping. Then he was confronted with the evidence of the other missing children, and soon cracked and confessed. Now on April 30th, a group of 80 searchers, including 50 off-duty firefighters, walked a field side by side when they find Hackey's remains scattered in a field near Venice. His trousers and cap with Hackey written inside the rim were found nearby. Now, a Venice service station employee recalled towing the car that Joseph was driving out of the sand near the field that same day, which I was also like, does this guy not know where to park his car, that he always has to get it towed back out because he's too far into the ditch?
It sounds like it. He ain't so good at the parking.
And Joseph would plead guilty to federal kidnapping and was sentenced to life in prison for the kidnapping of John Robinson on September 7th, 1964, which allowed him to avoid a death sentence under the Federal Limburg Act, which, in case you didn't know, that was a law passed in the 30s that made it a federal crime to kidnap and go across state lines. It also stipulated that doing so, you can be punished by death. Naturally, it would depend on the circumstances in the case, but federal kidnapping convictions carry a sentence of 20 to life with that law.
Well, why only for kidnapping?
It's the Limburg Act. The Limburg baby, that whole spiel.
No. Why did he only get kidnapping? Why didn't he get...
So, that was just the first thing when they charged him for kidnapping of John Robinson. He pled guilty to kidnapping.
Oh.
Now, credit card charges and statements by Joseph would later indicate he was in the area where the other boys were kidnapped and their bodies found. He would try to escape twice while in custody, which resulted in him being moved to Minnesota Correctional Facility.
They didn't understand that he done learned already that if you successfully escape, you get freedom. Because they're like, you sure done did a swell job of escaping. We're going to let you have your freedom now, sir. That's why.
So this resulted in him being moved to Minnesota Correctional Facility in Oak Park Heights, where federal prisoners with safety issues are sometimes sent. I didn't know that. Never heard of apparently, this one's a non-escaping one.
I didn't know there was some escaping ones.
I was like... Wait,
although
I'm concerned about the prisons nearest me then, because they weren't on the list of escape proof.
But I did send you that screenshot of the sign. It's in Texas that says to beware potential hitchhikers might be potential prison escapees or whatever.
Yeah.
Because apparently that prison, there was a lot of escapees. And I was just like,
I think
wouldn't
they
it
might
be better
need
just...
to update the
I know it was
locks.
cheaper to put up. I know it was cheaper to put up that their sign, but is there perhaps a better way to do this?
Now, he would escape being tried in Florida and Virginia because federal authorities refused to turn him over to those states.
because he escapes.
That's exactly what their reason was. Their reasoning was that Joseph had escaped custody a number of times in other situations, and they were not really willing to risk moving him since he was considered a serious escape risk. He had tried twice to escape federal custody, like during the 70s. So just like he didn't really quit either.
Well, I kind of get that, and I know it leaves the families of those kids without feeling like justice was served, but if he's gonna be a lifer, like in a true behind bars for life, no parole in the future, then it's really not worth the risk. So I do understand that, if that makes sense. I know that sucks for them because they don't get to see their day in court, but at least he's captured. You know what I mean?
Mm. So Joseph is set for parole October 1995. I just figured I'd let you have your little tangent.
You're an asshole. No, I don't agree. They should have let him serve his sentence and before he was up for parole, or let him go to his parole hearing and then transfer him down to wherever the next place was.
So the FBI
told bullshit.
So the FBI would tell prosecutors in Virginia and Florida to seek indictments, but not plan for a trial because having an indictment would keep him from being considered for parole.
Hell yeah.
So by 1991, Florida would try to revive the case against Joseph for the death of Lewis Hackey Wilson Jr., the 7-year-old from St. Petersburg. Now keep in mind, this is now 27 years since Hackey died. Now there's a lot of questions about actually bringing him to trial, and with Joseph's former mental patient history, it leads to questions of his competency to even be on trial, not to mention it's 27 years later, and the evidence and witnesses' statements are not as strong or as fresh as they were in the 60s. There's also the possibility that record keeping wasn't the best anyway. Information could have been lost. It's not a strong case. So they're all looking at, he's going to be out soon. Now, if paroled, New Jersey was also prepared to jump on this train and try him for the kidnapping of 8-year-old David Wolfe. Fortunately, or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at this one, Joseph will die in prison before he's paroled.
That's very fucking fortunate, because by the sounds of it, he wouldn't have been convicted for the other stuff. Unless he got a jury that was like, you know what? He's got a history of this. We're going to say he did it. And
so I think there was too much doubt. I don't think he would have been convicted out of the other states. And I think I'm glad the FBI didn't turn him over, because he would either escaped. And I think they didn't turn him over because none of the other states had enough on him. There was too much doubt. No witnesses saw him with the other boys. It was just too much of...
It might not have been him, yeah. Which, right. By the way, when you said when you were going that route, I was about to say, and I said it in my brain hole, time to hire a hitman or put a hit out on him. And then you said, fortunately or unfortunately, he died in prison. How did he die?
I don't know. He just died in prison.
What?
He was like 60 years old.
That's not that old.
It is if you're in prison. It's a lot of dicks to be taken to your face. Sorry.
He died
the way he lived.
He died of multiple contusions to his brain from or he died of a choking hazard. I don't know which. I don't care.
Okay. I don't either. But this was more or less, and more than less, a case of talk to your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, other parents. For the love of God, they need to
try to kidnap your children to see what happens. I think
it's not a bad idea to do a test subject. You know, somebody at work or a coworker, and I'm not saying actually snatch up a kid and drive off and scare the shit out of them, but I think just setting them up to do the whole. See if they'd even talk to a stranger.
You know, I'd be curious to do this on multiple different levels of, can I separate my children and see what they do individually? Or on a separate note, have them approached if my 3 youngest were together and somebody approached them.
I feel like together they probably wouldn't, because they'd have each other to be like,
Well, the older one of the three, I know, herds the other ones because you know what? Actually, I think the youngest would be okay. They would have to have a kid. If
I
they
don't
had
know.
another kid in the car, he might go. But if a car stops right by our driveway because of the railroad tracks that are nearby,
I think if they
um,
had a dog, I think if they had candy, I think I can't believe how many children got into this
no.
fucker's car.
So my 7-year-old, if somebody stops and they glance his direction, he comes running inside to let me know that somebody just tried to kidnap him. And I'm like, they did not try to kidnap you. They're stopped because the railroad things are down. And I'm right here. Like I can literally see him. I can see the vehicle. And dude, there was one time that his little fiance, yes, he's been engaged for a year. His little fiance's
Twice.
father drove by and honked and waved. He came running inside, or like running up to the porch where I was sitting, and was like, somebody just honked and tried to steal me. I was like, they did not. That was your girlfriend's dad waving. And he was like, oh, okay. He's like, I thought he looked familiar. Okay.
We'll be glad that you've instilled stranger danger in him. But I'm just saying, everybody else, kids are still kidnapped these days.
I need to find somebody that can put a kid in their car, not a kidnapped one that they're related to, hopefully, that's a willing participant, and see if my kid will get in the car with that kid.
Yeah, because keep in mind, one of these kids, their dad was a firefighter, and he swore up and down his boy knew not to get into a car, not to take anything from strangers. And here he is getting into a car with a stranger.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hold up. I did laugh. So you know how Dennis lived, right? And he basically had a vacation. I don't think he realizes he was kidnapped.
But yeah, when he doesn't know the danger he was in at all.
So his mom flew down to get him, and then they flew back home, right? Well, there's a picture of her holding him, of like she's just so happy to have her boy back. But then when
he's frowning,
he did look sad, but he doesn't understand why his friend has a busted eyeball. Like
he don't understand why his vacation had to end so soon. They were going to go to the ocean.
What I thought was funny is that in that same article, his parents decided to let him sleep in the next day. I was like, that's because all he did was rave about how he didn't have to get up till noon, and he went swimming 3 times. He's got a sunburn. He went to the bowling alley. There are horse races.
And now he's headed to the beach.
And he just doesn't realize he didn't see the ocean in any of that.
That's so funny. It's really not. That kid is so lucky.
It's not. He's so lucky, because when I read it, I was like, I got to eat pancakes for breakfast. So, feed the boy some pancakes, because that's all it took to get him. And he knew he possibly was in the news for being missing, and still just going out swimming. This is like a Home Alone thing, only with a twist.
Since we always reference movies, have you seen the movie with Angelina Jolie? It's called The Changeling. I think I've told you about it before. It's based on a true story. You have to watch it. And if you guys haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It's called The Changeling. It's same idea of little boy, or a man going around with his little brother, kidnapping little boys. And the little boys would see the other boy in the car and be like, oh, this guy's not bad because there's another kid there. But I won't spoil it for you. You got to watch it. It's a horrifying movie when you realize, if you keep in the back of your mind, it is based on true events.
Yeah. I think part of maybe he was able to get the kids to trust him is he looked young. So it's like, I feel like far too often make it seem like it's an old man creeper trying to kidnap. Yeah.
Or a scary looking person.
Well, it really makes me think of all of like the little kids that you've seen like disappear, and they're holding hands with their abductor walking out of whatever store.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to me. Talk to your kids.
Yeah, bad guys don't have to look scary.
Yeah, they don't. They look like everybody else.
And bad guys don't always have to be bullies.
Although in this case it was. But David's dad. he was really upset to find out that Joseph was released from mental hospitals and then was only out in January. You figure he did all that in pretty much April. I mean, one boy was in February, but like then March, and then a whole lot in April. Like, he was certainly escalating. But to find out that his son died because all this shit falls through the cracks.
You can literally go back to almost all the cases we've done. I'd say at least a good 85% of them where they have been in the care of a therapist, a psychiatrist, or a doctor in some way, shape, or form, or even in police custody for one thing or another, and they're given parole or released because they're all bad, or like time and time again, and then they turn around and do the same shit. So I get it.
Now, mind you, I do think because it was in the 60s when he told his psychiatrist that he's aroused by seeing little boys tied up. I feel like they didn't know how to treat that anyway, and were just like, okay, well, don't do that. Here you go. Go on now, you're all better. And I feel like that case initially when he tries to kidnap those two boys or do whatever he was trying to do to them, that I think they didn't proceed with any charges there because once he went to the mental hospital, I feel like they just didn't feel like taking that to trial.
Well, I'm just kind of curious of like, so he wasn't sexually abusing the kids?
According
or is
to
it just
Dennis,
something they didn't talk about? Well, I get that one's not, but what about the other one?
Yeah, I'm not saying anything because that was the other thing. They couldn't even prove how the kids died because by the time they find,
because he had the wire around his neck.
No, because he's still so badly decomposed. It was 5 weeks after he was dead. Now, he has a wire over his neck, but they don't know what caused his death. They can assume it was most likely what caused his death. But how do you know that that's what killed him if he's already slushy?
That's disgusting.
And you figure once animals have started picking at things, because the other little boy, his remains are scattered all over a dang field in Florida. They don't know how he died, so then you're also talking, what evidence is there? And like it or not, I think that's why, again, the FBI, I agree. At first when I was like, what? They didn't let the other states proceed. There was nothing to proceed with.
I have a question.
What?
How long from when he was given the option of parole till he died? Did he go to that parole hearing and get denied, or he just never made it there? He just died.
He just never made it.
I'm gonna say it was
could have been a prison hit. Yeah, like, you know what? It very well could have been, because I tried as much as I did to find out how he died in prison. Turns out, if you die in prison, they don't fucking care.
That's not true. We've done other cases where we find out, or we talk about how they died. It was a hit. You ain't gonna convince me otherwise.
Fine. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because people don't like kitty diddlers in or out of prison. And
nor should they.
I would say if he gets aroused seeing him tied up, maybe he just wasn't aroused by Dennis. Then he became friends with Dennis. And I hate to say it, but there's a number of times that people have survived because they befriended their captor.
Yeah. It's very true.
Turns out little Dennis was just a chatterbox and could talk to anybody and hang out with anybody, and maybe that's what led to his survival and his traveling around. Where
again, I can't say this enough. I love my children, but there are times where I wish they were not chatterboxes.
Yeah.
That would drive me crazy. So I couldn't imagine being a male who wants the kid to be all squealy, and instead he's just like, oh, you want to tie me up? Okay, well, anyway, while you're done with that, it's total Dennis the Menace when he's tying him up, and he's like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's just chatting away, and he's like, you're doing it wrong. I can get out of these real easy. Like, you might want to do this, you know. Anyway.
Speaking of which, when he wrote that letter to the prosecutor and was saying that he left home because all his friends wouldn't talk to him, yeah, because they found out you tried to molest children. But he thinks it's because he was in a mental hospital. No, sir, it's the reason why.
Well, thanks for that, Claire.
You're welcome. I knew
that was a real special case.
Yeah. Again, talk to your children, but that's all I got on this piece of shit.
Talk to my kids. I'm going to try to have them kidnapped.
Well, I say set them up, see if they pass.
not
the
actually
test.
kidnapped. Yeah, not kidnapped. Really, just see if they approach the vehicle in question that I set up.
Even a vehicle, or even if you guys are out shopping.
Um,
I don't know.
You know
I
what,
think
though?
it's
It'd be
a
really
word
hard.
safety. I think it's a safety test.
I think
Yeah,
it'd be
'cause you
really
guys-
hard for my kids, though, to not suspect something's going on if I'm not there. Because they're going to be like, why are we going outside and you're not sitting there?
That's when you need to take the opportunity when it's like, you were not supposed to be outside a moment ago. Those moments. Because like you pointed out, it takes 10 seconds.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.